Hey everyone, Shane at Moto Solutions. Today I have a 2018 R1M Superbike. This is Yamaha's top of the line leader bike. It comes with full Öhlins suspension, front and rear. And this comes stock. A polished swing arm, magnesium rims, all carbon bodywork, as you can see. And this is all stock, folks. It's got electronic suspension in the front, as you can see here. Very cool bike. This bike has a flat tire. Don't know how it got flat. As you can see, it's flat. We're going to use a bike lift or stand. They consider it a race stand. You have your swing arm spools right here. The swing arm spools have an indentation right here, and it fits right into this. Now this is something that if you're not comfortable doing, you might want to have somebody help you, because your first couple times it's kind of very tricky. The bike will become unbalanced. Make sure the kickstand is down, and you want to line these two up as you're kind of pushing down on the stand. And then we just want to push back on the handle and let it drop. Okay. As you can see, this rim is pretty flat. So what I'm going to need today is a 32mm socket, a dead blow hammer or a rubber mallet, a 5mm Allen metric, a 4mm Allen metric, a brake spreader tool, and a shoe booty. And I'll show you what this is for. So basically when we pull the caliper off, the caliper's right here. I don't want this thing flopping around, so I'll go ahead and take the shoe booty, put it around this, and that way it doesn't scratch anything. So let's pull off axle bolt. This is the 32mm. This is your axle bolt right here. You want to push the tire back a little bit. It'll loosen up this spacer. You have a washer. You have a spacer adjuster. And what I'll do is I'll just put all this stuff together and just set it aside. That way I remember what order it goes into. Now, on the bottom down here, you have your 5mm, that's your 5mm. We're going to put that aside. Then you have your 4mm bolt. You want to take this off first before you try to pull the rim off. Otherwise this thing could break. So there's your 4mm. We're just going to pull this aside right here. Just let it hang down a little bit. We're going to take the dead blow mallet or rubber mallet, whatever you have. We're just going to hit it a little bit. And the reason why I use a rubber mallet or dead blow, it doesn't scratch anything. We don't want to round off the edge here because then we won't be able to get the nut back on. Then I'll put my foot underneath the tire so that I can pull the axle out, and it should just slide out. There's your axle. We're going to put this on the side over here. Pull the chain off. And then there's your caliper. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and put the booty bonnet, shoe bonnet, and then this can hang. This is just your sensor. This goes into the bracket right down here at the bottom. We can just put that in later. So that way this is out of the way. Pull it out. Now that I got the rear rim and tire off, one thing you want to be very careful of is this sprocket. It's called a cush drive assembly. If you're going to take this anywhere to have the tire changed out, if you're not going to do it yourself or you're doing this for the first time, this actually just slides in here. So you want to be very careful, because if you decide you're going to roll this around, this thing just usually will fall out. You have your cush drive rubber pieces in here. Remember how they go. On this one we have 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to set these aside. Also inside here you have a spacer. You want to make sure you remember how that one goes in. We're going to put that aside right now, and we're going to re-grease all this stuff too. Now you also have a spacer inside here. Sometimes these spacers will stay in there, sometimes they'll slide out. What I'll generally do is turn the wheel upside down, see if it comes out. But be careful, because a lot of times there's a longer spacer in there that's probably about 6-7 inches long. You'll be moving the tire around and it'll decide it wants to come out. So I'm going to go ahead and change the tire, come back, and we'll reinstall it. Now that I've got the tire mounted on the rim, I'm going to assemble the components of the rim. As I talked about before, there's some things in here that will slide in and out. There's spacers. That spacer was the one that goes in the cush drive side. We have the rubber mounts. And you want to make sure you put those in properly. And if there's any damage to these, or these are split apart because there's only just a thin piece of rubber holding it right here, sometimes these split. These are your cush drive rubber. So now we have the spacer in here. I've actually cleaned the spacer, greased it. If you do drop the spacer on the ground and it gets dirt on it, you want to clean it off and re-grease it. Don't put any grease on this rubber or any of these pieces. We have your sprocket and your assembly that fits into the cush drive. As you can see, these ridges fit in here. You want to be very patient putting this in. Make sure it's in there flat. Then we have our last spacer, which I've already cleaned and greased. And I like to run a little coat of grease around this dust seal right here, just to kind of keep it pliable. We don't want that thing getting hard over time. So that's the sprocket side. On the disc brake side, this is your disc brake right here. This spacer right here has been cleaned, greased, got a thin layer of grease around the dust seal there. Make sure that goes in. Before I go ahead and put the rim in, I wanted to show you a couple things on the brake caliper bracket. So if you look right here, you have a piece sticking out, which would be this right here. Now inside the swing arm, it slides into this piece right here. There's almost a track there, as you can see, and it slides right into this piece right here. So when we're putting this bracket on, we want to make sure that we get this piece in there. Very important. If you don't get that in there, the rim's not going to fit right. You're going to do a lot of cussing, screaming. It's just not going to work. I'm going to put the rim back in. As I showed you this piece right here, this has to go in first. It sits right here. You want to be careful because that thing is just going to keep popping out no matter what you do. So what I'll generally do is I'll take the tire, hold this with one hand. You might want to have someone help you with this because you're going to have to move this around. And as I told you before, if you don't get that in the groove, it's just not going to line up. And you're gonna have to move this around. You wanna make sure you put the chain on the other side. We're gonna go ahead and tap it in with the dead blow hammer. Then once you get it in, you manually just want to make sure that that's in the indentation. Maybe take a flashlight and see if that piece is in there. Then we're going to take your spacer with your washer, your nut, put it on there. We're going to tighten that down. Rolling nicely. Always try to roll it. You want to make sure that everything is smooth in there. And then we're going to put our sensor back in. This is the sensor right here. And it's pretty self-explanatory. It kind of only fits in one way. So we have our 5mm Allen. Then we have the 6mm Allen. Make sure that's all snug down. And you want to put both screws in before you tighten them down completely. Make sure everything's tight. That seems to be in the track there. We're going to take the impact gun and we're not going to torque this down. We're just going to get it just a little bit tight on there. Make sure everything is moving properly. This jiggling right here, because it's on a pivot, goes in and out, that's completely normal, as long as this bracket is stable. So now I'm going to get my torque wrench out. And on this particular nut, I usually do it to 68 foot-pounds. And there you go. Everything seems good, it rolls good. The one thing you don't want to forget to do is go ahead and pump the back brake, because when you spread these brake pads apart right here, it's going to make this almost non-existent. You'll have no brake. So you don't want to get out on a test ride and go to get the back brake and there's nothing there. So pump this till you get some pressure and it gets hard. As you can see. And tire change. Now that I'm done doing the rear tire change on this 2018 R1M Superbike, I'm just going to walk around the bike, just kind of check things out. This is probably my favorite bike. So I want to enjoy it as much as I possibly can. And then before I finish any bike and let it go, definitely have to. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. Any questions, comments, feel free to email me. Thank you very much.